to the Daily Cyber Briefing. Today is Thursday the 14th of March. It's 8:30 in the morning, and I'm your host, Rich Benfield. So today I'm currently standing in for Stephen Ridgway. So, in the news today, Andy Loader malware targets manufacturing sector in North America. Darkgate malware exploits recently patched Microsoft flaw in a zero-day attack. Fortinet warns of severe SQLI vulnerability in 40 client EMS software. We have a UK council yanking their IT systems offline and their phones following a cyber ambush. And finally, researchers found multiple flaws in ChatGPT plugins. So, from the top, the Andy Loader malware targets manufacturing sector in North America. So the threat actor, known as Blind Eagle, have been observed using a loader malware called the Andy Loader to deliver remote access Trojans like Remcos Rat and NJ Rat. The attacks, which take the form of phishing emails, targeted Spanish-speaking users in the manufacturing industry based in North America. Blind Eagle, who are APT C36, is a financially motivated threat actor that has a history of orchestrating cyber attacks against entities in Colombia and Ecuador to deliver an assortment of RATs. That's your remote access Trojan, including Async Rat, BitRat, LimeRat, NJ Rat, Remcos Rat, and Quasar Rat. The latest findings mark an expansion of the threat actor's targeting footprint, while also leveraging phishing, bearing RA and BZ2 archives to activate the infectious chain. I bet they never paid for a license of WinRAR. So the password-protected RAR archives come with a malicious Visual Basic script file that's responsible for establishing persistence in a Windows startup folder and launching the Andy Loader, which in turn loads the Remcos Rat payload. In an alternative attack sequence observed by the Canadian cybersecurity firm, a BZ2 archive containing a VB script link file is distributed via a Discord content delivery network link. The Andy Loader malware in this case drops NJ Rat instead of Remcos Rat. So, what does this mean for you in the UK? You would initially think not much because they're basically targeting Colombia and Ecuador, Spanish-speaking countries as far as I'm aware. However, it does say in this article that they are expanding to users in the manufacturing industry based in North America. Should they get a bit more, eager in terms of their approach, you could well see them switching time zones entirely and targeting companies, again, manufacturing more than likely, in the UK, in Germany, across the more prosperous European countries. So don't be surprised if you see these guys, Blind Eagle, who are APT C36, popping up in more locations. Next up, Darkgate malware exploits recently patched Microsoft flaw in zero-day attack. So a Darkgate malware campaign that was observed in mid-January of this year leveraged a recently patched security flaw in Microsoft Windows as a zero-day using bogus software installers. So during this campaign, users were lured in using PDFs that contained Google double-click digital marketing redirects that led unsuspecting victims to compromised sites hosting the Microsoft Windows Smart Screen Bypass, which is CVE 2024-21412, and that led to malicious Microsoft installers, your traditional MSI files. So, excuse me, apologies. So CVE 2024-21412, which has a CVSS score of 8.1, which is pretty serious, obviously, concerns an internet shortcut file's security feature bypass vulnerability. It permits an unauthenticated attacker to circumvent smart screen protections by tricking a victim into clicking on a specially crafted file. It was fixed by Microsoft as part of its Patch Tuesday updates for February 2024, but not before it was weaponized by a threat actor called Water Hydra, also known as Dark Casino, to deliver the DarkMe malware in attacks targeting financial institutions. The latest findings from Trend Micro show that the vulnerability has come under broader exploitation than previously thought, with the Darkgate campaign leveraging it in conjunction with open redirects from Google Ads to proliferate the malware. It's quite a sophisticated attack chain, and it begins with victims clicking on a link embedded within a PDF attachment sent by a phishing email. The link deploys an open redirect from Google's doubleclick.net domain to a compromised web server hosting a malicious URL. And that is an internet shortcut file that exploits that CVE 2024-21412. Specifically, the open redirects are designed to distribute fake MSI Microsoft software installers. They masquerade as legitimate software such as Apple iTunes, Notion, NVIDIA, which come fitted with a side-loaded DLL that decrypted and infected users with Darkgate. It is worth noting that another now fixed bypass flaw in Windows Smart Screen, which was CVE 2023-36025, with a score of 8.8, has been employed by threat actors to deliver Darkgate, Femidrone Stealer, and Mispardo over the past few months. The abuse of Google ad technologies allows threat actors to increase the reach and scale of their attacks through different ad campaigns that are tailored for specific audiences. Okay, so in short, this comes in via a phishing email. So obviously make sure that your email filtering settings are cranked right up. Make sure your antivirus is up to date. And if you have ad blockers, that could potentially go some way to helping as well. But just be careful. Even PDFs can't be trusted these days. Next, Fortinet warns of severe SQLI vulnerability in FortiClient EMS software. So another Fortinet article. They are popping up quite often in the cyber news. So Fortinet have warned of a critical security flaw impacting its FortiClient EMS software that could allow attackers to achieve code execution on affected systems. They say an improper neutralization of special elements used in an SQL command, that's an SQL injection vulnerability essentially, in FortiClient EMS may allow an unauthenticated attacker to execute unauthorized code or commands via specifically crafted requests. So they've said that in an official advisory. Again, as per usual, you'll find links to these articles on all the socials after we've finished broadcasting. The vulnerabilities tracked as CVE is 2023 actually, 48788. That's 48788. It carries a CVSS rating of 9.3 out of the standard maximum of 10, and it impacts the following versions: FortiClient EMS 7.2.0 through to 7.2.2, and FortiClient EMS 7.0.1 through to 7.010. So, respectively, you would need to upgrade to 7.2.3 or 7.0.11. So, Horizon3.ai plan to release additional technical details and a proof of concept exploit next week. They said that the shortcoming could be exploited to obtain remote code execution as system on the server. Okay. They've also fixed two other critical bugs in FortiOS recently, and FortiProxy for that matter, CVE 2023-42789 and CVE 2023-42790, both with the CVSS score of 9.3, and those could permit an attacker with access to the captive portal to execute arbitrary code or commands via specially crafted HTTP requests. In this article, there's a huge list of Fortinet products that are impacted by those flaws. So as with all things, the advice remains to patch yourself if you're running Fortinet software. So even if you have to do it out of cycle, I would say that an SQL injection vulnerability is a good thing to patch ASAP. Next, okay, so UK Council yanks IT systems and phone lines offline following a cyber ambush. This is Leicester City Council, and they have said that their IT systems and a number of their critical service phone lines will remain down until later this week at the earliest following a cyber incident. The governing body of the Midlands City in England first reported issues across its services on March the 7th and announced via its X channel, oh God, can we please call it Twitter, that it had yanked a number of systems offline. A day later, it attributed the outages to a cyber incident. Now, when organisations are as vague as this, it can mean things are worse than they're letting on. They will use phrases like cyber incident or encryption event, and that's a sort of nonsense phrase that public relations teams use to delicately communicate a ransomware attack. Although that being said, this hasn't been officially confirmed to be the case with Leicester City Council. The Register asked the council for clarity on the matter, and they said basically nothing. The Reg wanted to know if it's a digital break-in, if it involved ransomware, and for an up-to-date statement, and the council literally stonewalled them. So, some security experts are suspecting that ransomware is involved and have noticed services at the council's network border pulled offline, including Citrix NetScaler, Cisco AnyConnect, and various other VPN appliances. A cursory scan of the major ransomware group's leak blogs shows none of the big names are yet claiming responsibility for the attack on Leicester City Council. Senior officials said the council is still working to fully understand the nature of the incident and that services will hopefully be restored before the end of the week. Over the weekend, we have continued to work with our cybersecurity and law enforcement partners, as well as learning from other councils who have had attacks to identify the nature of the incident and the steps we need to take to get our systems back online, said Richard Sword, Strategic Director of City Developments and Neighbours at Leicester City Council. Okay, I'm just going to stop this article just for a second, because we need to strip that statement down a little bit. So, over the weekend, they've continued to work with their cybersecurity and law enforcement partners. Okay, fine, standard. However, this concerns me, as well as learning from other councils who have had attacks to identify the nature of the incident and the steps we need to take to get our systems back online. So that implies that that they don't have the relevant plans and processes in place to recover by themselves independently. Now, that could be anything from a lack of a communications plan to a lack of having adequately safe backups. Obviously, we don't know and can't confirm anything at this stage, but it concerns me that they haven't identified the nature of the incident fully, and they don't know the steps they need to take to get their systems back online. Now, hopefully, the Strategic Director of City Developments and Neighbourhoods, Richard Sword, who said that, hopefully he's just not clued up and has said a bit of word salad, and it doesn't actually reflect what's going on internally in their tech, data protection and cyber incident teams. I would hope that they've got their act together a bit more than what that small statement suggests. So, he also said, we expect that it will take until at least the middle of the week before we'll be able to start the recovery process, beginning with our most critical services. So they're not massively fleet of foot on this either. Obviously, I understand that digital forensics and things takes time, but surely one of the primary things you need to do is get alternative compute power up and online. So they apologise for the inconvenience it's causing. Council officers are working hard to ensure that our frontline services continue to operate with a minimum disruption. Yes, that's fine. So what they have done is they've stood up some emergency phone numbers in lieu of full access to key council services, such as adult safeguarding, child protection, homelessness, housing, and a few others. And one issue that they have is that online forms for those functions, such as reporting child protection concerns or accessing housing services, are down, leaving the emergency phone number as the only contact method. It does sound like they're having a hell of a time. Obviously, wishing them the best of luck. And finally today, if I can just clear my Slack notifications that are taking up the tab. Right, here we go. This is probably quite an important one because everybody and their dog is currently obsessed with ChatGPT. And so researchers have found multiple flaws in ChatGPT plugins. And basically, there are plugins which do things like connect to GitHub and all sorts of stuff. And some of these are problematic. So researchers analysed ChatGPT plugins and discovered several types of vulnerabilities that could lead to data exposure and account takeover. So these are researchers from Salt Security, and they discovered 3 types of vulnerabilities in ChatGPT plugins that could lead to data exposure and account takeovers. So ChatGPT plugins, if you're not familiar with them, are additional tools or extensions that can be integrated with ChatGPT to extend its functionalities or enhance specific aspects of the user experience. These plugins may include new natural language processing features, search capabilities, integrations with other services or platforms, text analysis tools, and more. Essentially, plugins allow users to customize and tailor the ChatGPT experience to their specific needs. So plugins can allow users to interact with third-party services such as GitHub, Google Drive, and Salesforce. By using plugins, users authorize ChatGPT to transmit sensitive data to third-party services. In some cases, this involves granting access to their private accounts on platforms they need to interact with. The first vulnerability discovered by the researchers resides in ChatGPT and is related to OAuth authentication. It can be exploited to install malicious plugins on ChatGPT users. An attacker can write his own plugin, which tells ChatGPT to forward almost any chat data to this plugin. And then by exploiting a vulnerability in ChatGPT, he can install this malicious plugin on a victim account, reads the report published by Salt Security. Since the attacker is the owner of this plugin, he can see the private chat data of the victim, which may include credentials, passwords, or other sensitive data. The second vulnerability is a zero-click account takeover that impacts multiple plugins. An attacker can exploit this vulnerability to take over an organization's account on third-party websites like GitHub. The flaw resided in the Ask the Code plugin developed by PluginLab.ai, which allows users to access their GitHub repositories. In our example, we will use Ask the Code, a plugin developed with PluginLab.ai that lets you ask your GitHub repositories questions, which means that users who use this plugin gave it an access to their GitHub repositories, continues the report. Account takeover on Ask the Code means attackers can access GitHub repositories of any user who uses this plugin. The third vulnerability is an OAuth redirection manipulation that impacts several plugins. The researchers demonstrated the attack against the plugin Charts by Kesem AI. Like the first type of vulnerability, this issue can be exploited by tricking a user into clicking on a specially crafted link. Salt Labs reported the vulnerabilities to PluginLab.ai and Kesem AI, which addressed them. As we mentioned earlier, GPTs are our next version of plugins, and you can read more about this feature at openio.com/blog/introducing GPTs. Essentially, these are the same concept as plugins, but with enhanced security protocols, concludes the report. In conclusion, GPTs represent a significant enhancement in security over plugins, effectively addressing the majority of concerns highlighted in this discussion. Nonetheless, users will need to remain vigilant regarding potential risks. Okay, so essentially, bit of a storm in a teacup if you're an experienced tech user, essentially. However, ChatGPT isn't going to be used by just the experienced people, the security experts, the tech experts, and the coders. It's going to be used by just about everyone. So you can expect to see a lot more vulnerabilities and malicious scripts and things cropping up in the ChatGPT space. So as ever, be vigilant, be safe, and you'll be okay. So that concludes today's daily cyber briefing. I've been Rich Benfield, standing in for Stephen Ridgway. Thank you very much for listening to me waffle, and hopefully normal service with Stephen will be resumed tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.